Recap. Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Dao, Chapter 959, Chapter Taxa. The tale unfolds upon a lake as crimson as coagulated blood, where fate itself seemed to test the hearts of cultivators. Ye Wenshan and Tang Hua, Nang Hua, names that carried weight within the Northern Institution's low extreme division, were no ordinary disciples. Ranked 480th and 522nd respectively, they stood firmly at the peak of the low extreme. Both were one-star geniuses, their true battle prowess already brushing against the early stage of the medium extreme. Such strength allowed them to endure the oppressive gravity fields of the lake far better than most. They had tested these waters before. 80 steps. That was their limit. Up to that point, though pressure bore down upon them like an invisible mountain, they still retained enough strength to act, to scheme, to strike, or to push another into the lake of death. And today, they chose the latter. With sharp glints in their eyes, both men moved at once. Shoo! Their figures flickered like swift shadows as they leapt from one floating stone to the next. Each stone was large enough for a single cultivator to stand firmly, but two would already crowd its surface. And three? Impossible. Like twin gusts of cold wind, they closed in on Ling Han. A cruel smile spread across their lips. Your luck ends here. Out of our way, they roared in unison. Voices echoing across the silent lake as they launched themselves forward in a deadly arc, aiming straight for him. But Ling Han had already been waiting. Without even turning his head, he struck. Both fists surged forward like twin dragons breaking free from their shackles. Behind him, a mountain river manifested. Small, yes, but unmistakably real. Pulsing with his unleashed power. Pooh! From the lakeside came a sudden burst of laughter. The spectators could not help themselves. They had seen countless mountain rivers in their lives, but never one so tiny. Shui Yanyu's brows knit together in confusion. She had witnessed Ling Han's overwhelming might in the shattering void tier. So how had he become so diminished after stepping into the mountain river tier? After all, the size of one's mountain river symbolized strength. Yet this seemed laughable. You're seeking death! Ye Wenshan and Tang Hua sneered. To them, Ling Han's actions were nothing short of suicide. A newcomer to the mountain river tier, daring to clash with them? He truly did not understand the meaning of death. In fact, they even restrained themselves slightly. Killing a junior brother in full view of everyone would bring grave consequences. But that moment of restraint was their greatest mistake. Peng! Peng! Their arms were instantly knocked aside, as if swatted away by an overwhelming force. Ling Han's fists continued forward, unstoppable, carrying with them a terrifying might that defied reason. What? The two men didn't even have time to cry out, but their faces told the story. Shock, disbelief, fear. He had just entered the mountain river tier. His mountain river was so small. So how could he possess such terrifying strength? Before their thoughts could settle, boom, his fists crashed into their faces. It was as if they had been struck by a divine weapon. Their flesh rippled violently, distorting like waves struck by a storm. Teeth burst from their mouths, scattering through the air. Their bodies were flung backward like broken puppets, helpless and spinning. Then, plop, plop! They crashed into the crimson lake. Ah! Their screams tore through the air. They thrashed desperately, swimming toward the shore in panic. But the lake showed no mercy. Their skin began to dissolve, melting before the naked eye. Flesh sloughed away as if consumed by an invisible flame. Even as they circulated their origin power with all their might, the effect was pitiful. At best, they delayed their own destruction by mere moments. The entire lakeside fell into stunned silence. No one had expected this outcome. Ye Wenshan and Tang Hua were not nobodies. Though ranked in the 400s, one had to understand what that meant. Every 20 years, nearly 500 geniuses entered the Northern Institution. Given time, almost all of them would break through to the mountain river tier. And once within the low extreme division, advancement became painfully slow. Many required tens of thousands of years to progress further. Even with strict academy rules forcing breakthroughs within 10,000 years, the number of students in the low extreme division still exceeded 100,000. To rank within the top several hundred among such a vast sea of talent. That was equivalent to standing among the top 20 of the shattering void tier. And yet, these two had been defeated with two simple punches. Ling Han, was monstrous. And what was even more terrifying, he had only just stepped into the mountain river tier. He's from a small world, right? Someone muttered. I heard he passed 8 levels of the Academy's assessment. That means he has the potential of a 4-star genius. If that's true, another said slowly, then upon reaching the low extreme, his battle prowess would already rival the early stage of the medium extreme. That explains his strength. But Ye Wenshan and Tang Hua were also at that level, and there were 2 of them. They underestimated him, someone concluded. They didn't use their full strength. Naturally, they paid the price. I see. Nods spread through the crowd. The explanation brought a sense of relief. 4-star geniuses were rare, even freakish, but still within comprehension. Yet not everyone was convinced. Some stared at Ling Han with deep, calculating gazes. He had only just refined mountain river stones to step into immortality. If one imagined the journey from early to middle stage of the low extreme as 100 steps, then Ling Han was, at most, at step 10. So what would happen when he reached step 100? Would his battle prowess rise to that of a 5-star genius? Unlikely, but not impossible. And that possibility alone was enough to chill the heart. Ling Han turned around calmly. To him, those 2 had merely been flies, swatted aside without thought. They were never his true targets, not Bai Yuanxi, not Fan Yang. His gaze, steady and unyielding, looked beyond, toward Zhao Lun. That was the opponent he sought. Without pause, he continued forward. Step by step, his advance remained steady, even relaxed. After all, his raw power alone had already reached the early stage of the medium extreme. In this place, where gravity pressed like the will of heaven itself, battle prowess mattered little. Pure strength, that was the key. And in that regard, few here could rival him. Moreover, Ling Han possessed something even more terrifying than strength. His body. Under the crushing gravity fields, others had to protect their hearts, brains, and vital organs with origin power. Without such protection, those fragile parts would be instantly destroyed. But Ling Han? His physique rivaled level 2 godly metal. How could mere gravity harm him? As long as his strength could carry him forward, nothing could stop him. 60 steps, 80 steps, 90 steps. He advanced like a blade cutting through resistance. Only after crossing the 90-step mark did his pace begin to slow. A trace of strain appeared on his face. Indeed, reaching the island was no easy feat. Only around 10 individuals could succeed each time. Sweat trickled down his forehead. Jiang! Jiang! His godly bones clashed faintly beneath his skin, emitting sharp metallic echoes. His flesh trembled as the gravity intensified, attempting to tear him apart, to crush him into dust. Yet his steps did not falter. Each one remained firm, unyielding. This guy's a monster, someone near the lake shouted in disbelief. The crowd nodded instinctively. Monster. There was no better word. After all, this mystery realm contained multiple locations where mountain river stones could be found. Those who entered were scattered across different areas. Even though cultivators had arrived at the Crimson Lake 3 days ago, not a single one had reached the island. Not yet. But now, that unbroken stalemate was about to be shattered. 95, 96, 97. The numbers fell from Ling Han's lips like heavy stones sinking into a still lake, each step forward accompanied by a suffocating pressure that bore down upon his body like the weight of a collapsing mountain range. The ancient saying echoed faintly in his mind. When one had traveled 90 miles of 100, they were merely halfway there. And now, standing upon this final stretch, he understood the truth of those words more clearly than ever before. Though only a handful of steps remained, they were like the final gates of heaven itself, unyielding, merciless, and nearly impossible to cross. To call this the end would be an illusion. In truth, this was the true beginning of the trial. 98? 99! His body trembled violently, muscles screaming as if they would tear apart under the crushing gravity. His knees bent slightly, his figure wavering for the briefest of moments, as though even he might fall here, just short of victory. But in the next instant, his eyes sharpened with fierce determination. With a low roar from deep within his dantian, Ling Han drew out every last trace of power hidden within his body. Origin energy surged like a raging river, coursing through his limbs, reinforcing his bones, his flesh, his will. And then he stepped forward, the final step. In that very instant, the oppressive force that had bound him like chains of heaven shattered completely, vanishing without warning. The sudden absence of weight caused Ling Han to stumble forward uncontrollably, his body lurching several steps ahead before he forcefully steadied himself. Silence. He stood upon the island. It was far smaller than one might expect, no more than 6 meters across. Its surface was unnaturally flat, as if the peak of a massive stone pillar had been cleanly sliced away by a divine blade. The ground beneath his feet was firm and steady, devoid of the terrifying pressure that had plagued him just moments ago. Scattered across this small, tranquil platform were over a dozen earthen yellow stones, the coveted mountain river stones. Ling Han's gaze flickered. What if I take more than one? The thought arose naturally, like a whisper from temptation itself. He bent down without hesitation, reaching out and grasping one of the stones. The moment his fingers closed around it, pang! A terrifying burst of force erupted from the island itself, as though it rejected his greed. The invisible energy struck him squarely, sending his entire body flying backward like a leaf caught in a violent storm. In the blink of an eye, he was blasted all the way back to the lakeshore. Bang! He crashed heavily onto the ground, dust scattering in all directions, as his body skidded slightly before coming to a halt. Ling Han lay there for a moment, then slowly sat up, scratching his head as his eyes once again turned toward that small, mysterious island in the middle of the lake. A thoughtful glint flickered in his gaze. What if I try again? But this time, use both my hand and the blood-sucking origin gold at once? If he could act simultaneously, one hand grasping a stone, the origin gold seizing another, perhaps he could bypass the restriction and obtain 2 mountain river stones in a single attempt. The idea lingered in his mind, growing clearer by the second. However, before he could move again, a chilling presence gathered around him. Several figures had already begun walking toward him, their eyes filled with undisguised greed and ill intent. Ordinary mountain river stones might stir desire, but not enough to provoke open conflict in such a crowded place. After all, no one could guarantee that they would be the final victor. But this was no ordinary stone. This was a mountain river stone with a special attribute. Such a treasure could permanently enhance one's combat power, turning a 1-star genius into a 2-star, or elevating a 2-star into something even greater. Though a single stone might not be enough for a complete transformation, it was the indispensable first step. Without the first, there would be no second. And in the face of such temptation, who could remain unmoved? Even if the chance of success was only 1 in 100, it was still enough to drive people into madness. So what if you're a 4-star genius? Their gazes seemed to say. Your cultivation is still only at the early stage of the low extreme. At best, your battle prowess matches the early stage of the medium extreme. Many of us here have already reached that level, and some have even surpassed it. Hand over the mountain river stone. An elder stepped forward first, his aura surging as he unleashed a secret technique. His presence instantly climbed to the peak stage of the medium extreme, his confidence swelling as he looked at Ling Han like prey already caught in a net. In his eyes, Ling Han was nothing more than a junior to be crushed. Ling Han did not waste breath on empty arguments like, "I obtained this stone myself." In the world of martial arts, such words held no value. Without hesitation, he stored the mountain river stone within the Black Tower. Then his voice rang out calmly. "If you want it, come and take it." Simple, direct, because in this world, strength alone decided everything. Only the weak would complain. Brat, don't push yourself to ruin. More elders stepped forward, each one exuding a powerful aura. All of them belonged to the older generation, and at this moment, only those with battle prowess at the peak stage of the medium extreme were qualified to contend for such a treasure. Without 5-star geniuses present, 4-star geniuses at the peak stage of the low extreme were already considered invincible figures here. There were 22 such individuals. Yet only 7 stepped forward. The rest remained still, because 7 were already more than enough to suppress Ling Han. Afterward, they could settle the true matter. Which of them would ultimately claim the stone? Ling Han's lips curved into a faint smile. "What's the rush?" he said lightly. "Look, I'm planning to go get another one. Why don't you all wait until I collect a few more? Then fight over them together." Silence. Then, what the hell? Every person present stared at him in disbelief. Was this man clever or completely insane? Who would willingly gather more treasures just so others could rob them? The elders exchanged glances. Then they nodded. He couldn't escape anyway. Let him try. Leave that mountain river stone here, another elder said, stepping forward with greedy eyes that glimmered like a starving beast. Then go retrieve another. No one will stop you. To him, obtaining even one special mountain river stone would be a tremendous fortune. Though he himself had no room left for growth, his grandson might rise to become a 2-star genius with its help. That alone was worth everything. Ling Han had originally intended to ignore these people. After all, without using the ultimate arrow, his combat strength only reached the level of a 5-star genius. Facing so many peak experts, it would not be worth wasting time. But now, they insisted on provoking him. In that case, he would let them see. Ling Han raised his hand. A bow appeared. An arrow, dark, ominous, and brimming with destructive intent, was knocked upon the string. The ultimate arrow. The moment it appeared, a bone-chilling aura spread across the surroundings, seeping into the hearts of everyone present. It was as if death itself had drawn near. Their bodies trembled uncontrollably. Their souls recoiled in fear. This arrow, if released, would shake heaven and earth. I can only use this technique a limited number of times, Ling Han said calmly, his voice steady like still water. But I can guarantee one life will be taken with each arrow. His gaze swept across them slowly. Who wants to try? No one spoke. Not a single person dared step forward. Doubt lingered in their hearts. But what if it was true? The aura of the arrow was far too terrifying. It carried an oppressive might that seemed capable of annihilating everything in its path. No one wanted to be the first to test it. So, does anyone else wish to command me? Ling Han's arrow followed his gaze as it swept across the crowd. Wherever it pointed, sweat instantly drenched the backs of those targeted. Their faces paled, their hearts pounding wildly. Yes, he could only fire a few arrows. Yes, there were more than 20 of them here. They could overwhelm him eventually. But who would die first? Who would be the one sacrificed? No one wanted that fate. They were not united. They were not bound by blood. Even within the same clan, bonds varied in strength, unless it was for one's own child or grandchild who would willingly risk their life. Slowly, the elders stepped back. Their retreat was silent, but clear. They would not act. For now. Of course, if an opportunity arose later, they would strike without hesitation. Ling Han lowered his bow and stored it away. If not for the need to conceal the existence of the Black Tower, he wouldn't even need to resort to such a method. Without another word, he turned and stepped onto the lake once more. But the moment his foot touched the first stone, boom! A terrifying pressure descended instantly. It was as if the burden he had felt at the 80th step during his previous crossing had been compressed into this very moment. His expression changed slightly, yet he continued forward. 1 step, 2 steps. By the time he reached the 30th stone, the pressure had become unbearable. His body trembled, his movements slowed, and he could no longer advance. If he continued, he would be forced into the lake by the crushing gravity fields. With no choice left, he retreated. Back to shore. Some people sighed in relief upon seeing this. Others sneered coldly. So what if he got 1 mountain river stone? In the end, he still can't compare to Senior Brother Zhao. Of course not. Senior Brother Zhao is the greatest prodigy of the past 1,000 years. He might even reach the heavenly body tier in the future. He's not just a 1 in 1,000 genius. He's 1 in 10,000. Bah, Ling Han is nothing more than an ant from a small world. Mockery rose like a tide. Jealousy masked as disdain. Shui Yanyu and Hu Feiyun walked over. Don't be discouraged, Shui Yanyu said gently. You've already obtained 1 mountain river stone. That alone is remarkable. Besides, you've only just entered the mountain river tier. Once you reach the peak stage of the low extreme, you won't be inferior to Zhao Lun. Ling Han smiled faintly. Stand guard for me for a while, he said calmly. I'm going to refine a few mountain river stones and then try again. His eyes gleamed with quiet resolve. This was not the end, not even close.